One of my personal mottos is there's always room for improvement. For our next session, I would like to welcome Sigrún Ívarsdóttir, Product Manager at Configit. Sigrún will demonstrate how you can improve your existing systems by scaling your configuration capabilities.
Thank you very much, Tom. I'm very pleased to be here today to talk about this topic. So now we have been seeing how you create product models and how you get that published to consuming applications by creating these configurators using our platform APIs. But then the question is, how does this fit into your existing systems? And how does it fit into your existing system landscape? So now we know that all of you have some existing systems that you're using today. So you might have some different reasons for why you're interested in ACE and in CLM. So maybe your existing systems need a bit more power, or maybe you just need a completely new system, or maybe you simply need a system that ties this all together in a single source of truth. So that is what I'm going to focus my session on today. That is to talk about how ACE can fit into your existing landscape and how you can benefit from even just starting with a small part of ACE that you can then gradually over time start to add more parts of ACE for even bigger benefits. So I want to start by talking about this integration overview picture that demonstrates how different systems are integrated with ACE. And as you can see, we have ACE there in the center, representing the single source of truth. And the data is sitting there to the left. And that can come from various different systems. And Henrik also talked about this briefly in his presentation. And these can, for example, come from SAP system or your PLM system, or maybe you even have your own legacy systems that you would like to incorporate into ACE. And then all of this data is then imported into ACE with the platform APIs so that you can have them readily available to be used in, for example, ACE model to create the product models, as Laura talked about, and also by our Configure API to make the configurator available across different omnichannels in, for example, sales. And one of the benefits is that we are able to make this exact same data available across different systems. So, for example, you might have our own CPQ tool quote today, or you might be using as an existing system, you might be using Salesforce CPQ to do configure, price, and quote. And then you could have this exact same data also available on, for example, a public website or on mobile devices. And what is so strong with this is that we can, for example, take the configurator as a standalone and use that across different systems. And this means that you don't always need to rely on the configurator in the existing system that you're using, but you can rather use a platform that fits your needs the best. And this also allows, as I mentioned, to reuse the same configurator across different applications. And there was actually a recent report that came out from Gartner where they talk about emerging market for composable product configurators. And in there, they're talking about that the configurator today is somewhat trapped in the CPQ system. And it should be extracted in order to achieve better performance, but also to provide a common configurator that you can then use across multiple sales applications. And this aligns very well with the overall product vision that we have in Configit for ACE, where we have ACE as a single source of truth for this configuration data. And that is exactly why we are positioning ACE as a platform that can support multiple systems and applications that require fast access to valid and up-to-date configuration data. So I put together a few scenarios on how you can benefit from using ACE in your existing systems to demonstrate how you can get started with ACE. And I will use this picture that you see here on the screen as the basis, and then try to kind of blur out some of the things that I'm not talking about and highlight the other ones that are the key players in each scenario. So in this first scenario, it is about extending Salesforce CPQ with an external configurator. And as I mentioned before, this is one of the benefits of using ACE, that you can take these configurators as standalone and then plug them into other systems. And this is also something that is possible because Salesforce has this external functionality so that you can hook in external configurators. So in this scenario, I'm a salesperson that is working and doing my normal work inside of Salesforce CPQ. I'm doing my quotes in there, and I'm happy with that environment. But as an organization, we need a better system to make sure that we have the relevant, up-to-date data coming from different systems into Salesforce CPQ. And we also want a little bit more powerful configurator because we have very complex products. So that is the scenario that we're going to look into. And here I've included all of the different data parts, SAP and PLM or all legacy systems. It's not so relevant maybe from where exactly the data is coming from for this specific scenario, but it's then extracted into ACE. And then in ACE, we have created a product model, the iHear one that Laura just showed in her demonstration. And then we have also created a configurator for that iHear product to, like Jens was explaining and how to do, so that we can get that into Salesforce CPQ. So the idea is then that we take this configurator that we have now created as a part of ACE, and we put that into the Salesforce CPQ application and use that instead of the built-in configurator. And I will show this in a demo in just a moment. But first, I just want to recap a little bit what this is about. Yes, so these are, forgot I had some animations there, but yeah, so we have here in the center, you can see that we have ACE model, and then to the right, we have the embedded configurator running inside of Salesforce CPQ. But then we actually also want to run this on a public website. So that is why we have the website icon there as well. So just to recap a little bit. So this one is about getting the Salesforce, scaling Salesforce CPQ with Configit ACE. And what we are doing is that we are enriching the Salesforce CPQ experience with the power, speed, and accuracy of ACE product configurator. And we are utilizing, as I mentioned, this external configurator feature that they have in Salesforce CPQ. But we are also utilizing the ACE APIs. So this is what makes this possible to do. And as you can see here on the screenshots, the big screenshot is showing this configurator running in an iframe inside of Salesforce CPQ, whereas then the smaller screenshot is showing this running on a public website. So I want to show you this also in a demo, how this then actually works in real life when we work with it. So I've prepared a quote here. So this is running inside of Salesforce CPQ. I've prepared this quote already, and this is just how you would normally create a quote inside of Salesforce CPQ. And then in order to add some lines to this quote, and then I can go and open up the line editor by editing the lines on the quote. And that will take me to the details of it. And then to add a product, we can click this Add Products button to open up the product catalog. And here we have some different product variants of this iHear model. And now I'm going to select this invisible one in order to show how that one works. And when we hit the select button, it starts to load up this external configurator from ACE. And you can see that one here. I'm going to make a few selections, picking the adult for the age group and also moderate for hearing loss. And if you note that we are making moderate for hearing loss, because that will be important later. The other selections in here are maybe not so relevant, so I'm just jumping quickly over to the hardware section, where we have some bit more action going on. So here you can see that we have this power level variable. And for power level 1, we have a lock on it. And you can click on that to get an explanation to why that is. And that is because we have selected moderate in the hearing loss. So this is a combination that is not working. So now I have selected power level 1 because I really want that power level. So now we can go back and see what impact that has on the hearing loss variable. So it has been defaulted back to mild, and now moderate has this lock on it. So this is a way to show that you always have this guided selling and you never have any dead ends in the configurator. So if we jump here to the end of this one, we have in the end a summary where you can see all the different selections that we have just made in the configuration. And this is of course how you create the configurator, what you see out here. Here we have added this unique code. And then to the right, we have the save button, so you can store this configuration back to Salesforce. And then it gets populated with all the prices for each of the different selections. And that is also up to the setup of how you set up this integration, what data you would like to show here. So we are happy with this one, and then we save this line back to the quote. And then we are basically done with this configuration part of it, this external configurator. Now we are just back in the normal process of working in Salesforce CPQ and can do the further processing in here. And I just wanted to show, at least also here in the end, how you actually work with this also on the public website. So just to show that you can have exactly the same data running on the website. So here you also have the same product variants as you saw before. I'm going to select again the invisible one, making the same selections just so you can see that it is working exactly the same, because it is the same configurator just running in different applications. So here again we have the power level and we have the same guidance in here. Of course, this might not be the optimal setup that you would have, like this website type of thing running inside of Salesforce. Yeah, so here we don't have like this saving back to Salesforce because we don't have that kind of link in this one. But of course, you could have different views on these things depending on what you are, whether you're putting it on a website or embedded in Salesforce CPQ. But this was just to demonstrate that you can have exactly the same configurator looking exactly the same, running in multiple applications. So the next scenario, then we're going to take a few steps back and see how we can actually start up a little bit lighter with ACE. So in the Salesforce demo, the iHear model was coming from ACE model, but it didn't have to come from ACE model. You might also have created this iHear model already in SAP. So if we, for example, say you have all your existing models running in SAP, and you don't want to have to start from scratch to create all these product models again in order to start to use ACE, then you can also start by only using a fraction of ACE. So you don't need to use the ACE model part. So if we focus here in this one only on SAP data, it could also be other data, but for the sake of this demonstration, we will only focus on taking the data from SAP. And we would like to make sure that we have some good linkage between our SAP data and what we show in our Salesforce CPQ system. So we don't want to have to create everything from scratch. So we are basically taking the SAP models and using the platform APIs to make these available inside of Salesforce CPQ. So this is a way that you can make sure that you have valid and up-to-date configuration information inside of Salesforce CPQ by using the platform API. So this is at least a way that you can get started in getting basically exactly the same data inside of Salesforce CPQ. So this is exactly as it was in the previous example, but now the model was basically just coming from SAP. And then you could also from Salesforce then upload your quotes back to SAP for order processing and manufacturing. Then the next scenario, or the last scenario that I have for this session today, that is building a little bit on top of the previous scenario 2. So here we are looking to strengthen our configuration capabilities by using Configit ACE, and specifically the ACE model module. And then you can do that by having a combination of both SAP and ACE models. And this is a concept that we call shell KMAT, where you have like the shell, that is the characteristics and values inside of SAP, but then you extract that data into ACE, and then within ACE you use ACE models to build up the logical model. So you add all the rules inside of ACE. And this you can do to improve your modeling experience and also ensure that you have no dead ends in the configuration, getting better data validation, and that is all thanks then to our Configit's patented VT technology. So the idea here is that we are then combining SAP models or part of the SAP models and ACE model, and then putting that and making that available on Salesforce CPQ. So all these scenarios are basically working in the same. We're looking at different data and then making it available in Salesforce CPQ. But these are different levels of doing it. So you don't need to start with this big bang of having everything inside of ACE, but you can start by having your data as it is today, for example, in SAP, but still getting some benefits from using ACE. Or like in this scenario where you're building a little bit on top, and then you get even more benefits from using ACE. And similar to the previous example, you can also upload your quotes from Salesforce back to SAP. And then if you need to modify these quotes or the configuration, then you could either do that from within the configurator in Salesforce CPQ, or you could also do that from within SAP. And then we have this punch-out concept where you can then get an external configurator, ACE configurator from within the SAP system, where you can do your changes and then store that back to SAP. So these are some different ways of doing that. So I would like to wrap up my presentation by talking about one customer example. So unfortunately, I can't talk about which customer it is because it's a newly closed deal and we can't disclose that information, but they are a producer of building materials and they are using Salesforce CPQ. And they found exactly what they were looking for by improving the existing system with Configit ACE. So the challenge that they were facing was that the performance of their Salesforce CPQ system wasn't good enough. And after doing some exploration, they found out that the source of the issue was the configuration engine in Salesforce. And therefore, they had a wish to replace that engine to improve the performance of the CPQ system. And after looking around, they found the solution to this problem with Configit, where they're then using ACE as the C engine or the configurator engine, replacing the configurator engine in Salesforce CPQ. And this is, of course, enabled by the Salesforce's Bring Your Own C API, or this external configurator functionality. And this solution has then improved the performance of the Salesforce CPQ system, but at the same time enabling the customer to reuse their existing sales tools. So they are still working within the comfort of their existing system, but now having some better performance. And this customer actually combines all of these three scenarios that I've talked about today, because in the beginning they only had SAP models, and then they started to use those models, but they needed a better system also to maybe tie these things together. But then they gradually start to move over to creating their product models in ACE by using the Shell KMET approach. And then all future product models are then created in ACE. So that is also done to have a easier transition from having the product models in one place and then starting to have your product models in ACE. And of course, you don't need to do it in this way. You don't need to combine all different scenarios to get started with ACE. You could also start with the simplest scenario first, and then you could maybe gradually add some more ACE into your life. So that was what I want to talk about today. Any questions?
Perfect. Thank you, Sigrún. We did have a question come in, and this is with respect to Salesforce. They wanted to know if it's possible to have a series of sub-tabs inside of your structure, such that when it's open from Salesforce, you could have all these different sub-tabs inside of the view.
So inside of then Salesforce or within the configurator. So I'm not sure which one it is, but at least if it is within the configurator, then you can for sure have some subtabs. The configurator is absolutely created just how you would like it to be. So the configurator that I showed in the example is of course just a demonstration of how this can look like, but you can basically do whatever your imagination allows you to. So you can add all the tabs that you would like to have.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sigrún. Really appreciate it, and helping us to form a deeper understanding of how we can scale our existing systems and incorporate a composable product configurator.